everybody. Welcome back again to, what's the name of this one? Oh, did you forget? No, it's Star Trek Resignation. It's what we started calling this whole podcast feed a while ago, but no, we're doing still. It's a Discovery Home Companion. But it's been a while. It's been a couple weeks, unless you're listening to this immediately after you listen to the last one, because, hey, thanks for catching up. But Sean's still alive, still recovering from the coronavirus, but you may know me more. My name is Wade Bowen, and with me is Glenn Hall.
Hello. I'd like it if you just, every time you introduced yourself going forward, you just prefaced it with, Sean is still alive, I'm Wade.
Right. Yeah. And coming back again, we got Lane Bowen and Courtney Bowen.
Hey, we're back.
Hey, guys.
And hey, yeah, so...
We're alive, too.
Still alive.
Yeah. A little peek behind the curtain. It's been a week or two since we recorded the last one. There's been a lot of discovery that has happened, but we're still catching up. And so this is a great time to reflect on Star Trek Resignation because, yes, I'm resigned to doing this. And we're still talking about it, but I think we can be a little bit looser with, like, don't spoil whatever's coming next, because if you've listened, you probably can catch up.
But don't spoil it for me, because the beauty is I still have not caught up with the most recent few episodes, so I'm still liking, contrary to what you may think if you listen to that last podcast, I'm really liking Discovery. And so far, I'm like an episode or two behind in the big picture, and they haven't ruined it yet. You may just a disclaimer, because after you listen to this particular episode, you might not think I like it, but I do. I do. Just want to
and I'm still liking it too. Like overall, I have. But we'll get into our criticisms, because that's what else are we going to do on this podcast. But Glenn, any thoughts?
Well, look, this is actually, I agree with Lane that this has been like a pretty solid season, and I'll certainly try not to talk about anything that happens after this episode. I think even with the other episodes that have happened since then, I think 3 is still the low point of the season for me, which is a good sign. Like, it hasn't dipped below that point. Though, some parts certainly have gotten close, but like, I think the cruelty of this season is that we're seeing glimpses of what Star Trek Discovery would look like if it were really just this episodic show with a larger premise and a larger end goal, but like telling just interesting science fiction stories in the context of this ship has traveled to the very far future and there are fish out of water. And it's when they steer. It's kind of similar to the Spock thing from season 2. It's like when they steer it back to the MacGuffin of the season, it's not necessarily as compelling as just going on space adventures. That's what people want from a Trek show. They want space adventures.
Yeah, I'm okay if they could do the overall arc thing well. Like, you know what? I'm trying to go into this like just do a good job and I will be on board. And for the most part, they've done a much better job this season, so I'm still on board.
You mentioned the MacGuffin. This season, the MacGuffin works for me. They just need to learn to, hey, take your time, guys. Don't rush it. You have the actual MacGuffin for this one is okay, but they're kind of fumbling the delivery on it. They're rushing things, and you could do a lot of cool stuff with this MacGuffin as opposed to the other MacGuffins. You know what? They were all dumb. This one's okay. Their execution... If this was the first season, it would have been like, we'd still be saying it's a shaky first season, but it'll get better. But it's not that bad.
Right. It's like, it's a solid start.
But this one is, so much better than the last two. So
so what was the MacGuffin of the first season? The second season was the Red Angel, which started off dumb as hell because we see the entire galaxy for numerous reasons.
Was there really a MacGuffin?
Well, the first, it was... there were like 3 of them because they couldn't decide. It was like Mirror Universe. Wait, there's
the Klingon.
It started off Klingon stuff, then MacGuffin. Mirror Universe, and then what was it? I don't even remember. Klingon stuff. No, that didn't. They kind of threw it in at the last episode, but That was part of the mystery of the show.
And then the mirror stuff with Lorca. And
Yeah, they were MacGuffins that we didn't know were MacGuffins because they didn't actually know they were either until they threw them in. And
it was like the mystery box of let's bring a mystery on them and whatever.
Half the time the mystery is what's the mystery? We don't know. Oh wait,
right? Which
I guess the MacGuffin was like the tardigrade was the closest thing of like getting the mycelial drive to work.
I guess in terms of a MacGuffin as a term, what they were chasing was the friends. I don't know what they were chasing because
the friends they made along
from
the
what they had mysteries that they were going to reveal, like, oh my God, he's a secret Klingon. Oh my God, Lorca's a mirror Lorca, and they were all like just badly executed.
Well, it was just kind of chasing one thing to another. It was like, okay, there's this. We introduced a war with the Klingons, and she, was a traitor. I mean, a mutineer, and then they started with that plot. Then they dropped that plot, and they paid no attention to the Klingon War. They introduced mycelial network stuff, and from there they just kind of tiptoed from that to Mirror Universe. And so there was a MacGuffin of what's this Mirror Universe stuff about, and then there was. Then it turns out. Oh, Lorca wasn't one of them, so that we didn't know that was a thing, and it actually would have been cooler if he was just an asshole anyway.
But they're doing much better this season.
Yeah. But this is the third season.
The MacGuffin of this is what is the source of the burn, and they're right.
Yeah,
of this season.
Yeah.
So whatever the cause of the burn is the thing that they're chasing after.
Right.
And also,
I don't know how many times I have to say it. # burn that ham.
Yeah. Well, we can get into. I have some theories, but we're here to talk about this season and episode 4 of season 3, which is what Forget Me Not.
Mm-hmm.
Yep,
it's the name of this episode, and
you forgot where you were going. So, stop.
I can read a quick synopsis.
That might be a good idea.
Sure.
Yeah, just like so it's not coming from me, so it'll be short.
So you're cheating. You're doing
episode 4, Forget Me Not. Adira cannot remember how they came to be the host of the Tal symbiont and cannot access the memories of previous hosts, such as Senna. Burnham takes them to the Trill homeworld in hopes that the Trill can help unlock their memories. The Trill are also no longer part of the Federation, but welcome Discovery due to their need for new symbiont hosts. However, many Trill refuse to believe that a non-Trill could host a symbiont, and Adira is turned away. A group of Trill attempt to kill them and take the symbiont, but Burnham stops them, and a friendly Trill, Guardian Xi, I think is how you'd say it, offers to help. Xi, at the sacred caves of Makala, Xi and Burnham help Adira connect to Tal and unlock their memories. When Senna died, Tal was transferred to Gray, Adira's Trill boyfriend. However, Gray was killed shortly after, and Adira offered to become the new host to save Tal and the memory of all previous hosts. After unlocking their memories, Adira is able to communicate with Gray. Meanwhile, Saru attempts to improve crew morale with the help of Dr. Hugh Culber. Oh, right, there was the weird dinner scene in this episode, wasn't there?
Yeah.
Some thoughts on that.
All right, yeah. You managed to find the most Glenn of summaries on the internet.
Hey, fuck you.
But no, that's fine. It's fine. Yeah. I had some.
So it's the Trill episode.
This is the Trill episode.
Right. This is the Trill episode featuring Ronnie from Schitt's Creek.
Oh yeah, I haven't seen that. But
oh yeah, I haven't watched all of Schitt's Creek, so
she's like a supporting character on Schitt's Creek, and it was very distracting.
What character
to
is
see
it?
her on Star Trek on Schitt's Creek? Sorry.
You can say Schitt's Creek. I can tell you I haven't watched it, so I don't know who you're referring to.
Right.
From this.
No, she's the black woman with the short hair. I think she was the leader of the Trill group.
Okay. Oh. Yeah.
Okay. Now I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, she's like.
I was like, are you talking about Gray? Or are you talking about?
No.
Like,
no. Sorry. Yeah, the specifically the older black woman with the short hair was
okay. All these podcasts with people making these obscure references I don't understand. Oh man, what can that be like? Listeners of this would never know about. Yeah, let me make 500 Kids in the Hall references.
Should there be some Infinite Jest reference here? I don't know.
Yeah, probably.
And, something about a tennis school or something. I don't know.
So we get a lot of information about Trill, okay.
Well, sorry, I had a thought regarding the whole Trill thing. I just wanted to get out of the way that came up in the last episode. when I brought up like, why'd it have to be a human with the Trill thing? Everybody was like, it's fine, and that didn't bother you and everything. And I was the one who seemed like an asshole who was like, hey, why is she got to be a human? Why can't she be a Trill? And I still believe that, so I just want to get that away. But not because, go ahead.
I still don't really have a problem with that.
Well, you made good points. I mean, the reason that you were fine with it because they've established that humans can host Trill. Because the very first real thing with Trill, that was a thing that was established. And it wasn't really so much of a, like, I thought they were breaking any sort of nerd continuity issues with it, so much as, hey, I just want more aliens on the crew, and we get another crew member, and it has to be another human. I just wanted more aliens, and it was the easiest of all aliens to do makeup for, because all you got to do is put spots on them, so you don't have the excuse of like head costume.
It's not a Saru.
Yeah, it's like they used all your alien budget on Saru because that's a lot of prosthetics, and you know what? There's no more prosthetics going around. Saru took them all up. You don't have that excuse. It's just put some dots on her and you got it. And I just want a more diverse crew, alien species wise. It's cool we're getting a diverse crew as far as less white people, less white males. I'm all for that. So it wasn't because it was,
Another reason I think it kind of works is like it's harder to piss me off by fucking up Trills that way. Like you can't say, because you have such an easy excuse like Trills don't work like that. It's like, well, it's a human. It works differently. Because if you were that kind of hardliner, you'd get mad at Dax for being different than that.
Yeah, and that wasn't my problem. It was more just like, and they already played with how Trills work enough that if you played with it a little bit more, especially 900 years in the future, and you have a damaged Trill. The other thing's like, well, it wouldn't be hard to make her a Trill whose stuff still doesn't work like it does before because...
Maybe the symbiont was
there's some sort
harmed
of... Yeah, exactly. She could have been injured. It could be a problem with this particular symbiote. Or the fact that they're so isolated that she can't get the stuff to the proper training because she got one shoved in her stomach and something didn't bond correctly. There's plenty of reasons it could be, and you can still have the exact same plot. I just wanted more species diversity in my Star Trek, and we're getting more humans. I mean, the closest thing we get is a human whose head glows when he does mental telepathy stuff or something,
Yeah. I mean, in some ways, this is still more diverse alien-wise than other Treks. You got
lizard guys,
but also like they kind of lean into. There's sometimes when they have the easy out of it's a human that works differently. When she's going into the pool of milk, they're like, well, the problem is that she has repressed memories, and it's definitely that she has to get in touch with them, which is. It makes total sense. It's the plot reason, and that's a good plot reason. But also, it's like you also could say we don't know it's a human.
Yeah, they didn't. But that's the thing that they had, and they didn't really use the things that would make sense for her to be a human. And in this particular episode, there was just getting nitpicky. There were a lot of points where the Trill, the fact that she was a human, only mattered when the plot really made sense for it to. But when they hand waved a lot of like where it seemed like. Oh, we're mad because this human's got a Trill in her. And then we're not mad. But then we are mad again. But only when it really serves the plot we clearly want to get to and not really... It seems... Everything made it contrived in this particular episode. For example, like when she jumps in, they're like, oh, we can't go in after her. A human just jumped in there. That you just established that...
Two humans.
Yeah, that you hate the idea of one being a human so much. But, here, let the second human jump in to say... like stuff like that just would have worked better had it been... I don't know. There, I said my piece.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, clearly you wish it had been a Trill, which is fine. I think it works with her being human. And though at the end, because it's been established that the Trill are decimated, there's not enough left, and they've brought a host home and like, oh, you're the future of our civilization. And then at the end of it, I've got a lot of stuff about to say before we get to the end, but the very end with the Trills are like, oh, you should stay with us. And she's like, no, I belong on the Discovery to show the rest of the galaxy that anybody can be a host. And they're like, yes, that is our future. But like politically, that's like, that's a dissonance. Like, it's nice that you're so advanced, you're going to let that happen. But politically, you should be like, oh, I'm sorry, we're going to have to restrain you now because you're death to Trill. If the rest of the galaxy are now hosts, that means no Trill are going to be hosts anymore. And we're dead.
Yeah,
as our planet. But they're like, no, you know what? It's fine now. Go ahead. Like, that's very Star Trek of you. But I was like, wait, politically, that's a bad move for your sovereign nation, or, but
Yeah, it sort of feels like that should be a slow decision and not like, okay, well, a few minutes ago, we did not want anyone other than Trill hosting, and now we're just cool with anybody doing it.
Well, and
it kind of
right.
goes back to the, Michael Burnham seems to be able to just,
She's very convincing.
like she can convince everybody to get on board with whatever she wants, like without much argument or fanfare. I mean, like, centuries old traditions and arguments and hurt feelings, and she can fix it all of it in like 5 minutes.
yeah, okay, so jumping back to the beginning.
Okay, sorry.
No, I'm jumping. Don't apologize. I'm the one all over the place. But you're right. Because I have some thoughts about the Michael Burnham of it all. It's like, it starts off with a chief medical officer's log, which is nice, I guess. Like reiterating some of the points that we made last episode about how all the crew is lost and they got PTSD from jumping to the future, and that's what the episode opens with Culber saying everybody's fucked up from this huge jump, which is, fine. So they are. And then with the 5 words that will make everything better, when we find the Federation. So it's like, it's setting up this thing, but spoilers, they find the Federation next episode. And then we get a few minor detail, like also a thing that bugged me going back to Trill symbionts in DS9. She calls it the squid inside of her. This is nitpicking, like, out the ass, but they call it a squid the whole time, and I'm like, fuck you, it's a slug.
So, I mean, clearly she doesn't know what she's talking about, and they should be more insulted that they called it a squid in her stomach. And get your
Right.
The Trill.
They show them swim. There's only one. There's no tentacles except when they go to the metaphor space later on, and it's like strands. It's fine. You decided you wanted it to be a squid instead of a slug. That's your choice. It's a slug to me. But
it's some sort of slimy invertebrate. That's all that matters.
yeah. And so Hugh and Culber and
It'll always be a slug.
Adira have a nice heart-to-heart where he's like, look, you got to get your shit together. And she's like, can you come with me? And he's like, I would, but Michael Burnham's the star of the show, so she has to go with you. Like,
Yeah.
Okay.
Of course. Which, the fact that the show actually opened up with someone other than Michael Burnham talking, I thought was actually nice. Like, for a moment, it was like, we've got other characters that are talking and
Maybe they
thinking
can be
and
the
doing
focus
things.
for a little bit, right?
Yeah. So
But
that was nice. I like that.
Yeah, even when this show was more, this was the Adira episode, it still manages to be a Michael Burnham episode. But
Yeah, and you might have thought that Hugh was the chief medical officer, but no, he's not. We finally got whatever her name is, the black woman that's the chief medical. The CMO has a talk with Adira as well, because I got in a whole argument with Joni about how last episode there's like, we don't know anything about Trills, and then in this one, what's her name, the CMO, was like, well, no one's ever seen a human host, so this is completely new territory for us. Like, you haven't seen any new Trills yourself at all. It was new territory off the board. Everything about Trills was new territory for you last episode because you're from the past when they didn't have Trills. And then I said that, and then Joni was like, we got in an argument because, they have that sphere data, which obviously told them all they need to know about Trill. So I was like, well, they're not acting like it. And then the way that me and Joni can get into it, we had a whole argument that spiraled out from there, and we yelled at each other, and that's why she's not on this podcast. That's fine.
and now you're recording from a alley somewhere.
Yeah, well, from the bathroom on the other side of the apartment. But yes.
But not because of that fight.
No. Yeah, I do this every time. And then, so I was like, well, last episode they didn't know, and now they're like, this is crazy that you're a human. It's like, you don't know that. But they do. Okay, fine, they do, whatever. They got it from the spear data. Good enough. It's not.
Yeah,
but
Hugh seems to be turning into the chief counselor more than any. I mean, he's also a medical officer because he does all the medical stuff when they need it. But they have an actual higher ranking medical officer. But he seems she doesn't seem as concerned about everybody's emotional health.
He's got a better bedside manner.
He's becoming the counselor. He's telling everybody what they need to do, relationship and personal wise.
Yeah. watching this episode, I was like, I started to get mad about like, she's the chief medical officer. Where's her place at the dinner table? Damn it! And they're like, wait a minute, maybe she hates all these people.
Yeah, she's a
I don't wanna go dinner
professional,
with them.
damn it. She's not doing this fucking high school shit.
Yeah, Hugh's a touchy-feely guy. Let him take my point.
Exactly.
He takes point on this. It's fine.
And so it made me like her as the chief medical officer even more. It's like we don't ever see her because we only see like the like high school clique that is the bridge crew that act like they're in high school or something, and they're
Right.
So you know what? The professionals are doing their fucking work, and they don't have time for this shit.
That's right. And it makes me feel bad about Saru as a captain. But he does his job as a captain when he goes down to Paul and says, hey, we got to figure out how to make another navigator or whatever. And Paul's like, fuck you, I could do it. And then he's like, if you die, we're fucked.
Yeah.
So figure it out. And then Tilly says, I've tried to do a thing. And Paul's like, fuck you, Tilly. You're not so smart. Fuck off. And she's like, whatever. Dark matter. And then at the end of the episode, he's like, Tilly, I'm sorry. And so that gets resolved. But like, Saru's doing his job there, except to your point that it's everybody, the friend clique. And then when Saru Saru doesn't even have the idea to have dinner later. The computer tells him to. And then he's like, I just invited all my favorite people to hang out. It's not even, he doesn't invite the CMO.
But he's Space Hitler for some reason. Like, I still don't like that dynamic. Like, I get that there's she's real tight with Burnham for some reason because she likes Burnham, but Burnham still knows she's Space Hitler. Anyway, but like that, the dynamic that they're kind of continuing between Saru and, what's her actual name in this?
Giorgio.
Michelle Yeoh?
Yeah.
Not Georgia.
Yeah. Is just weird because like, hey, let me invite this person that I know actually ate my species and is basically eating people who might have been related to me in another universe, and she was constantly undermining me, and I'm inviting her to this special dinner with all her friends. So it seems because
keep your friends close and keep your enemies closer.
I guess so. Yeah.
So they don't eat you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
True.
Right.
So,
you got to keep an eye on her anyway.
So what would have been awesome is if in that whole like dinner scene he was like, "Oh, hey Giorgio, guess who this is?" If he was like, "Oh, are you eating human now? Okay, everyone here is eating human. Fuck you, Giorgio." That's what it's like. That would have redeemed that scene. That's what I want.
The cool thing about Giorgio, I guess she'd be like,
she's probably
that's
eating
fine. I've
would
eaten
have been
human
fine
before.
with it.
Yeah.
See, it would have been a great scene on all levels. I would have made me like Saru more. And you know what? It would be a good Giorgio moment too. So
Right. And she would have been like, oh, it's simulated. This I could taste the difference. Fuck off.
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, so the thing in this scene that like really just made me was the whole thing with Detmer and the weird ass, like, I can't remember what the prompt was that they were going around the table doing. Oh, they were telling haikus. That's what it was. They were making up haikus, and Detmer's was like, oh.
Hugh's blood across the med bay
no,
floor.
not Hughes.
Paul.
Paul, thank you. I know it's Anthony Rapp, but I forgot his character's name. But yeah, it's like, oh, Paul's blood is so funny, and it's like not one fucking person at that table besides Paul was like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like,
a few people were. They were like,
they thought it was weird, but then they moved on in the conversation without like really asking, like, hey, why did you say that really fucked up thing? Like,
well, because she blows up and says, Paul, you think you're so good. And then later she goes to Hugh and says, hey, this is why I blew up, because I'm a pilot. It was stupid. That scene is where I realized something about this whole season and this whole show so far, is that they're writing these episodes as they shoot them, more or less. They don't have the whole season written of episodes before they start shooting. I got into some arguments on the internet with Trek nerds, which is what you do, about like how this season wasn't working for me in some ways, and they're like, no, it's so much better if you rewatch the episode later, you'll get all these details that explain everything. And I'm like, that's what I hate about it. Which, listen to last season, that's what I yelled a lot about. Like, don't make me do homework for the thing to make sense. And this is what I got to...
And some of these episodes I didn't want to watch the first time through. I mean, don't make me go back and watch them.
Yeah.
Right. So this person's point was like, if you watch it a second time, you'll like it more because it makes more sense. Though on this second watch, I really liked this episode. The first time I watched it, it was fun. It's like, oh, I like what they did with the Trill, like expanding on where DS9's kind of anyone can be a host that's a Trill is what they kind of set up in DS9, and this is anyone can be a host, even species-wise. But so I like that. But then the second time, all the problems started to come to a head for me, specifically this one where I realized, like, in that first episode, or the second one, where Detmer shows up, it seems like, oh, she's clearly possessed by control or whatever. We all said it, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And the first time I watched this, like, oh, she might still be, but they're just working through a thing. And then we've watched this episode, and I've watched a few past, and it feels like, oh, this is the time they took to explain Detmer. This is the Detmer episode where they, because I said from the beginning they're writing character first this time, which maybe they still are. They took this turn to let's explore Detmer, and this is the Detmer episode to explore her issues. And I think it's just she was a jealous pilot. She's not possessed. She's PTSD because she's a pilot.
You think this is them resolving their Detmer issue?
That's it?
Because if
I
this is
think
them
it might
resolving
be.
their Detmer issue, then holy shit, that's a lot worse than I gave them credit
Yeah,
for.
Like they set up something in that first episode, and they're right. They have an outline for the season, I'm sure. But then they're like, oh, we did this thing. How are we gonna? And so they just like, oh, we don't want her to be possessed. Let's just resolve it here. I mean, I would love to be proven wrong, but it felt like, oh, this is the time they spent to do that, and that's not great. Because, yeah, I think we're in agreement.
Yeah, I hope you're wrong. Oof.
Yeah, me too. Because that just, if nothing
now
else,
I'm like actually hoping she's possessed, because that would at least be like,
that would explain how fucking weird she is.
yeah. If
Right.
this is them explaining, this is the best they can do to explain how like weird and messed up she is, then, ooh, I mean, they need some
Right.
sort of contrived sci-fi thing to make it make sense. If that
Yeah.
would be better. As bad as I liked, because to be fair, I just get rid of that. Let's wipe that season away. But
Right. And
Now
to be
almost-
fair, in
yeah.
later episodes, they do give her some time to shine, which will decide how good it is later on. But I think it's just related to her being a macho pilot. Because she's like, oh, well, you know how pilots are. We're macho. So when Paul Stamets was the navigator pilot of the ship, I got jealous. And then he almost died. And what's so great about him? And I'm macho. I hope that's
ooh, yeah, that's that.
I hope that's not it. But and they jumping back again to when Hugh goes to see Burnham and says, Burnham, you're the star of the show. You should go to Trill instead of me. He's like, oh, this room's full of stuff. Your quarters before were bare and empty. So you really really learned about yourself on your year abroad, didn't you? And she's like, yes, I did. And he says, what I love about you is that you just support everybody reflexively. And she kind of squirms and says, I don't do that anymore. But then she goes off and does it. Yeah.
They need a scene where everybody, hey, wait, don't forget, we need at least every episode has to have a couple of scenes where people just tell Burnham how great she is. We can't lose that. That's, I mean, because I hate complaining about the character so much, but just drop those scenes and she gets a lot better. Honestly, I mean, stop everybody telling her how great she is. That's annoying.
Right.
Well, and I think another problem, again, I'm going to just complain about Michael Burnham, but, to that point that like, I really love the way that you support everyone reflexively. Like, they try to make her like all things to all people. Like, they can't just settle on a character trait. So, like, I thought when we first met her that she was supposed to be, like, the, sort of Vulcan, logical, kind of cold, and didn't really understand emotions. And
Nope.
And now it's, oh, no, she's, like, total empath and is supporting everyone and, is, Hugh's pick to, like, go on this, because only she can like talk to people for some reason. And
Yeah, I mean, the Vulcan thing really only went to awkward line readings. That's all it really seemed to amount to.
Yeah, she tells like Adira, like, you were really going through some shit, and she's going through some shit. Now you spent a year abroad, so you've gotten through some of your shit, but that makes you the person to go to Trill to sort her stuff out. Which I guess she's technically second officer now, so she does get those.
well, and I guess maybe the rest of the crew is all like 20 years old, so maybe she is the only one with some life experience that can relate to anybody.
I don't know.
But it's frustrating to me because again, it just sort of feels like we had this great crew, and all these, we have different species, we have different backgrounds, and they're not being used. And so,
right.
If you look at like Next Generation or Deep Space Nine, like, if you want like the person who's more like relational, you go to Troy. If you want the warrior, you go to Worf. I mean, like, there are people who had these, like that was their main characteristic. And so it just made sense in a plot. Okay, which character are we going to use in this particular storyline? And with this, it's like all Michael Burnham all the time.
I mean, every time there's a problem, I mean, literally, it comes up in just, I think, the next episode, spoiler, somebody goes, oh, wait, no, you should do this, Michael, because you should do this, Michael.
Right.
Which,
it's
I mean, if you want,
they always have a great reason for her to do it, too. Like, if it was just, you're the first officer, you go on away missions, that'd be fine. Yeah. But it's not like even the captain is sending her. Hugh says, you're so good with people, Michael. You should go to Trill instead of her. It's like, one, you're not even the chief medical officer. Why is it your call?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Because he's apparently just deciding he's ship's counselor and can make these decisions for some reason. Yeah. Which Saru should be like, hey, what the hell is you? Wait, I didn't order you to do that. No, there should have been a scene.
Maybe Saru's not such a good captain, but he's like, you're my best friend, Hugh, of all the doctors, so I guess I'll follow your lead.
Yeah. Which, going to, like, your whole, like, well, this is, the how other shows will say, hey, this character has these traits, and this is what this character is like, so therefore, this, all the more terrifying if Wade is right about Detmer, because, when they try to do other characters, they get that awkward, like, wait, you're in... Right. Only way this character makes sense is if she's possessed by an insane homicidal AI. No, she's just weird. She's just had, strong feelings about being a pilot. Like, oh, wait, because that makes sense if you were... We have to go to homicidal AI implant, and, going into your cybernetic implants to make sense of the character. But no, we think we can explain it with this, and this is how we pull that off. It's like, oh, man. Maybe it's better off Michael doing everything. Wait, no.
If they're writing it makes sense more if they're writing the show as they go along more, because then they write a scene where something's going on with Detmer, but they haven't figured it out yet. Then 2 episodes later, they're like, we should resolve that. Yeah. And then this is what so, I mean, I hope to be wrong, but
they gotta give all the interesting stuff to Michael. So, I think some of that, like, okay, we're gonna do this something with Detmer, and then 2 episodes later, they're sort of like, never mind. I mean, I think it's because it's like we have to, like, give all the attention to Michael, and so they just lose interest in these other storylines.
Yeah. Right. It's a shame for the actress because, like, I mean, it's like she shouldn't have to do all that. She's better if they don't. Right. Like, for all the complaints about the actors, like, I like in theory what they could be doing with this character, and it's like anyway. I got it.
So if we're talking about who this episode is about, well, every episode's about Michael. That B plot was about Detmer a little bit, but mostly this episode is about Adira, which she's still like her, like which is a few episodes later.
I'm gonna break my promise to not reference later episodes just to to correct the pronoun.
I said up top that we wouldn't hold to that. You created that rule for yourself.
I know, it's true. I did, but so Adira, this was kind of a confusing thing, the way that they rolled out this character, because initially I believe this character was marketed as the first non-binary character in Star Trek.
Right.
But when the character's introduced, they constantly refer to them as she, and those of you listening, you probably have already heard this. In a later episode of the season, Adira does clarify that their pronouns are they, them, and it's strange to me that they didn't just do that.
I can tell you why they did that if you want to know.
Sure, please tell me.
We're going behind the scenes a little bit, like, because at first, last episode, I was confused. I thought Gray was non-binary, but Gray's just
trans.
Is just male, and the actor's trans.
This wasn't revealed this episode either. I don't think. I think it was only a later episode. Boyfriend.
She Adira calls Gray her boyfriend, so that's.
I didn't think that. I was looking for it this episode. I didn't think that happened in this one. I guess it did.
No, she Adira refers to Gray as her boyfriend, so that.
Okay.
That's that.
I thought that was
But like the
first on
reasoning
next episode.
was the actor's name. Their name is Blue, maybe, I think. So they are non-binary. Ian Alexander is trans. Ian Alexander, I recognized him from the OA show, which I really hated. But he's good in the OA. It's a fine enough actor. So, but I was confused about who was non-binary and who was trans. But the reasoning why they come out later as non-binary is because the actor themselves had not yet come out to their parents and their family. And so they didn't want it. So they were like, wait for us. And the writers were supportive and like,
Oh, that's cool.
just give us time and we'll just write it into the show. So like by
Okay.
the time the show aired, they came out to their family and all, but they're like, well, they were shooting, they hadn't yet. So they're
Gotcha,
like, all right, we'll
gotcha.
just work it into the show so we can do that for you.
Okay.
And,
yeah.
you know,
Good
and
on
that's
them.
fine. Yeah, it was like it works. I have seen people like in the future. Is that really an issue that you had? Like they wouldn't just be done. It was like, yeah, well, yes, 900 years from now, they probably wouldn't have to come out as non-binary to Culber and have it be a thing. But science fiction isn't really about the future people, so it's fine for me. that
And
they
also,
didn't
Discoveries
start.
comes technically from a timeline where people before the original series, when their sexual dynamics were
Yeah.
really messed up. So clearly, she
Right.
has to stay to these people, right? I mean, these
Right.
are coming from a pre-Kirk time, so we know they're not going to be really up on their pronouns, right?
Right. But yeah, that's the reason that it changes in the middle of the show because the actor hadn't come out yet and they wrote it into the season.
Yeah, that's cool.
Okay, all right. That's great that they did that.
Yeah. So yeah,
I did not know that, obviously, so I wasn't sure what was going on.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I liked the Trill storyline. I liked Ian Alexander's not my favorite actor, but that's fine. But like everything they did in the story, like they changed things up with the Trill going in the water. Like we don't know how it's going to work on a human because it means that they can do more effects where they have the tendrils go into them and.
Yeah, that was cool. I liked that representation
Yeah.
of it all.
That scene bothered me.
Oh yeah, why does that bother you?
Well, just they let this one human go in, and like if it was just Adira and we saw her like getting sucked into the water and going through her memories or whatever, I'd have been cool with that. I just didn't like that Burnham has to go in there too.
Well,
And
the fact- yeah.
like let it just be Adira's thing. Let this be her experience. And
To be fair, they just introduced this character last episode. Why do we need like Michael Burnham to lift her up? Why can't she just be a strong character who can go through her own shit without Michael Burnham going and helping her go through her own inner demons? Like, we just met her. For all we know, she's a tough... I mean, she can handle that, right? For all we know, we just met this character. Maybe she's got these reserves that we can do. I'm messing the pronouns up all over the place. Sorry.
I wasn't going to say
My
anything.
apologies.
Like I'll give it a pass if you're talking about the character
Yeah.
before now. Like, but like, yeah, we'll try to do better.
I was like, I'm
when we
struggling.
get to
Like, oh wait, what shit? What did I just say? I'm
When-
gone.
yeah.
Yeah,
Especially
like
when the
I would
character
like
change.
it to have just been Adira's.
We just introduced this character, which we've had the whole 2 seasons with all these other characters, and we finally get an episode that's not focused on Michael Burnham, and it's the character we just met. That kind of bothered me. I mean, again, the Trill stuff is cool because you're doing some new sci-fi concepts that are more interesting than a lot of the shit that Discovery's done in the past. So I'm on board with that. But it couldn't help but wrangle me a little bit. We finally get an episode that's not about Michael Burnham, and it's about the person we just met and learned her thing at the last 5 minutes of the last episode.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and then also it's still about Burnham because for some reason, because this character can't handle her own stuff when she gets thrown in a memory pond, Michael Burnham has to come and jump in after her to save her
the
from
day.
it. So like, that is like, let's give some other people some credit. Come on.
Yeah, I would
But-
just like to have other characters.
So those are nitpicky comment, but I couldn't help but notice them.
While we're talking about nitpicky stuff, one thing that is kind of bothered me with this this episode. Like I think it's great that Star Trek is doing this, relationship that is not like, hetero, cisgender, all that stuff. Like I really like that it's a non-binary character. I mean, I think I'm all for that. What I wasn't into is that these are 2 kids and they were getting real touchy-feely. And I mean, our son is like 1 year away from being a teenager, and I was like, I just don't want to watch these
as
young
someone
kids.
who's gonna have a teenager real soon, like
I'm like, keep your hands to yourself. Like,
no touching.
She's like, they're like 20 something probably.
No, they established that she's a teenager. I think in the next.
She's like 17.
Yeah,
I think,
she's like 16 or 17. Which Star Trek has a great history of teen geniuses. But then on top of it,
she's
like
teen genius.
What like there, which goes to like I guess the biggest.
We don't know what they're up to. I mean,
well,
17-year-olds, we know what they're up to.
We know
we totally know what they're up to.
But also, they're 17 years old. Let's just get that out of the way. Like I'm okay with romance in my shows, but I'm a grown ass man. What I don't want to see. I don't want to see two teenagers romance, and for one thing, because there are other shows for that.
That felt icky.
I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to push against y'all. Like, teen.
Oh, I know that's
romances on TV are the norm.
Oh, I know. I get that. I get that's what other people want. It's not what I want.
Get off my yard.
Star Trek. That's a whole. If you know what?
Okay.
If you want a CW Star Trek show, that's great. That should be a different show. This is the flagship show. That's that's a spinoff. That's another show.
There's plenty.
I will totally own that this is like my own hang up. Where I mean, like again, between our son,
you're allowed your own hang ups, but Star Trek is about everybody.
Yeah, I work with teenagers.
Getting sexy with each other.
I spend all day trying to get these teenagers not to touch each other. So maybe it's just my own thing. Like, oh God, just stop.
That also goes to my biggest problem with this show, with this episode. I mean, this episode, hands down, is like, okay, we get this character. She's got these issues with her, dead boyfriend, or their dead boyfriend. I'll get it right eventually. And then we finally get this resolution, and
she's still she at this point, so it's fine.
Right. So at the end of the episode, of course, Trill stuff is different with humans, and we're not sure how it's going to work. And in this case, it works where the past life that is in the symbiote is their dead boyfriend, who they see, as like a hallucination all the time. Which, okay, that's interesting and all, but these are teenagers, and like it's like, oh, it's a sweet thing, and this soulmate that they get to see, that they still get to be together and all this stuff. But no, that's fucking terrifying because these are teenagers. Imagine this is not a
ageism,
ending.
and
this is not a happy ending at all.
You're being ageist.
No, it's imagine
that's your own hang-ups,
if you were
oldie.
Stuck.
Listen, old man, you need to get
teenagers.
over it.
This is a warning to any teenagers listening to this podcast. I'm like, really? First off, but second, it's not a happy ending. Don't stay with your. Some people end up with their high school significant others, and it works out great. But for most people, it's not. You think that it sounds like a happy ending, but this is a horror story. They're stuck with their high school boyfriend in their head.
Listen, old
for
man,
the rest of their life. She's 17 years old.
Hey,
she's got how many years in the future? She's gonna live to be 200 or some shit, and for the rest of her life. Whenever she goes on a date with somebody else, if she ever wants to be in another relationship, the whole time her high school boyfriend is going to be watching, and she can never escape him. He's in her brain.
This is a hard thing.
This is the saddest thing
we get
in any Star Trek ever.
We get it. It's not like, all right.
You guys, you're tearing this family apart.
No, it's like, but it's not. Well, it's fine. That they were teenagers, but then Gray was a host, so they became like, they got 5 generations to call upon and still be in love or whatever. So they're an old man at that point. Also,
well, see, we stop you there. Then it was gross because they were an old man with a young person, but that's a whole Trill issue. So I guess,
yeah, that's Trill.
then it's kind of weird.
All right, I'm not done.
There's some, yeah.
Yeah, so, and then the second part, it's, your boyfriend's there the whole time, but also when she's talking to Gray, she's like, why didn't you tell Burnham about that? They would have thought I'm crazy. He's like, why would they? One, they don't know anything about Trills, and you're a human, it works differently. She wouldn't have believed me? Of course they would. Michael would have. Fuck off. But that goes to the why I think doing the non-binary thing with Trill works so well, partly is they are a part of you, so you're a them. Like, in the plural sense, where you know, she's not Adira anymore. I mean, she's still Adira. She's not, you know, and even it's a line that I think Gray has in there, like when they're having the flashback and Adira's like, are you anymore, or are you the rest of them? And she says,
you're making good points, except they're still teenagers, which nullifies all your points.
I get what you, yeah, I get it.
They're not as smart as they think they are. They're teenagers.
Yeah, the idea of like having my high school ex in my head the rest of the like my natural life. I'm like, that's the one that, you know, you never want to admit to. Like, oh no, I never dated that person.
Yeah, your high school significant other.
The point
that's
I was
not the one that gets in
yeah.
your head forever. That's terrible.
The line that I was trying to cut to in the edit was, who are you anymore? It's like, well, I'm many and I'm one, like anyone is. Like, yeah, we all have different facets of ourselves. So like, that's a nice line for Trill, and it's a nice line for identity. Like,
yeah,
like, and like, I'm not just me. I'm there's a lot of people. I contain multitudes. Basically, it's like,
you know how that line would have worked even just the same though, if they were adults.
Right, I get it. Gray is an adult, and now Adira is, because they have like, well, they have 5, 6. Which is also a nitpicky detail I have later on, like last episode, and even at the beginning of this episode, in the previously on anyways, Paul says, Adira has advanced knowledge of our engineering system that she shouldn't have. Oh, it's because she's a Trill. So, okay, so the idea is that she has memories of these old systems, which actually, no, it's not that she has memories of them. She must have expertise in them, because she only goes back 5 hosts, or 6 if you count Gray, but Gray was only a host for like 20 minutes before the ship blew up and Adira had to take over, whereas Jadzia Dax had like 5 hosts and was only like 300 years old.
Right.
Tall is not 900 years old, because that's not long enough to get only 5 hosts passed.
Right, maybe she doesn't remember them all yet.
Because you know who's bad at math? Teenagers.
Not a teenager anymore.
She's still a teenager. She's just a teenager with a bunch of old people in her.
And also, well, if she didn't remember them all, then that shouldn't have been enough for the Trill Council, because who, like, give us your names, and she's like, I don't know, I'm Adira, and they're like, oh, fuck this, get the fuck off our planet, and then they.
Well, that's why they at that point honestly, they established we're kind of in, you know, post-apocalypse Star Trek. They should have just like, okay, we're taking you, and oh, there's 2 of you. It's our whole civilization. You're. I mean, I know you can't do that because it's Star Trek and they have to get off the planet and all that, but
that's what happens in this episode, though. That's what happened. Like, you know, there's different opinions on the council. They're like, oh, you have to stay here, and she's like, no. And then she's like, you're human, you're going to destroy us because you're not Trill, get the hell off. And you don't even know the host, you're no good to us, get the hell off. And then the bad guy Trill is like, this way, and he's like, fuck you, you're staying.
Yeah.
These 2 guys and these 2 staffs say you're staying, and then they fight and they don't.
Right. It still seemed a little too easy to me. Like ultimately at the end, they're like, "Okay, well, we'll see you. All right, fine."
Yeah, and then I said, why letting her go at the end is an awful idea if you want to retain the power of your planet,
right?
Because you're just giving it all the host to everybody else. Which, I guess, if you're,
which also didn't make sense for that they at one point wanted to kick her off and like,
well, that's the other thing.
Like, take your symbiont and go.
You're the most person we've seen in 100 years. Oh wait, you're human. Fuck off. Wait, no.
Well, they do, and then they say if we try to force the Trill, force the separation, it could kill the host. So we can't do that. So I guess we'll let you go.
Yeah, which is again like where I go. It would just seemed all kind of a little too easy. Like nope. Okay, I don't know. But I get it. That's a little, again, being a little nitpicky. That's what we're here for, right?
But
that's me talking about how many hosts they have and how long.
Right, coming from that conversation.
But you know, it did have the feeling of like a first draft. Like it felt like there were some things you could kind of clean up and tighten up.
Yeah, if they weren't rushed for the writing and then production. I mean, it seemed like the writing. I mean, that's my biggest. The writing seems rushed. I mean. And it is. I know that's how, you know, TV works a lot of times. But it's like, could have used a few more revisions, you know?
Yeah. Well, I think my theory is that they could have used knowing what the whole season was going to be.
That goes back to the rushed thing. They should have written all the episodes and then revised.
Because they write half of them at least, if you're lucky, and then they take a break and they come back and write the second half. Mm-hmm. A lot. It seems like last season especially, that's how that worked. But yeah, who knows? But they're shooting season 4 already, going right into it. But that's neither here nor there. But yeah, that's all the notes I took. I don't know what.
And that covers all my problems.
Oh, and then the spore. Yeah, there's another theory I picked up on the internet about the source of the burn being the ship from Calypso Short Trek, which in this episode you might get some reasons to believe that might have something to do with what's happening here, because they call back to that with the ship's AI coming on board.
The whole thing with
advice.
the AI giving
Buster
him
Keaton.
ideas.
Oh, and they established that the ship likes old movies or whatever. Is that this episode?
Yeah. And then he's like, well, a regular AI wouldn't be able to tell me that everybody needed R&R. There's something else going on, and he says that to somebody later on. I think the sphere data merged with the ship and that.
Right. Like, I actually would be totally cool with that. Like, that's much better than just...
fine.
Well, Michael caused it because, of course, everything goes back to Michael.
I mean, and
if it actually went back to the ship, I think that'd be kind of cool.
And then there's a later detail in a later episode of a map, a galaxy map or something. I'll point it out when we get to it what it is, but it looks suspiciously like a map detail from that short trek.
Okay. Well, I mean, if they want to make a new character and they make the ship a character, I'm all on board for. I mean, Star Trek has you got Data, and then you have in DS9 you've got the holograms is becoming intelligent, and of course you have the Doctor from Voyager. It's not that far to go. Okay, and now we've got the ship as the AI intelligence thing as a full-fleshed sort of independent sentient life form thing. If they make the ship a character, I'm totally fine with that. Like, honestly, that was one of the better short treks too. So I don't mind.
Yeah. And it makes sense if you're gonna explain why the TOS era people can talk to their computer like they did in TNG, which Kirk didn't do. Well, here's a reason: it merged with the sphere data. You could also say it's 900 years in the future, and we updated the tech too. So there's a lot of outs for that. Yeah, and then Senatol's Lullaby that Gray plays on the cello and that Adira plays at the end is also a detail to put a pin in.
Oh, yeah, like everybody seems to remember. Or whatever.
Yeah. That'll be the new MacGuffin.
Chase.
So I guess we've talked a long time about this episode already, and I'm sorry that I kept going off on tangents, but I wanted to bring back a segment that we used to do on the ROA that I was kind of sad to leave behind, but we can go through it fast. The how would we have fixed this episode? Because we got into that a lot last episode about what they should have done, and hey, I think maybe people need to hear what they should have done with this one. So I can tell you what I would have done with it, but if y'all want to go.
Well, I think I covered mine by my rambling in this one. It's like, just make Adira a Trill, keep the same plot, and just because I want more aliens on my Star Trek. Not that any problem with the character is fine. I just want more aliens. And of course, it was a little contrived how easy. I think it was like, well, we were going to keep you. No, we're not. Get away. Oh wait, come back. I wanted a little more danger, a little more threat from the Trill. There was that one guy. It seemed like with some buddies. Is kind of how it felt. And let Adira be her own strong person, and Michael burn it. Michael should have tried to jump in the water, and the Trill were like, fuck no, we just had one human in there, we're not letting two, and then Adira handles it herself. That would have been a lot more it would have been better for the character. The character would be stronger for it, and hell, even Michael would be served by that, I think.
Yeah, I think this probably makes me a very boring person, but I think traditionally a show would have had Adira be the main focus. I mean, there might be a beeline plot too, but just start the show off with her and have the show kind of follow her, and you can still do like maybe take out that dinner party bullshit, but
Take that.
you could have like a B plot as well, but follow her throughout most of the thing, and then just let it be her, having her own experience at the end. Let her be the one to sort of figure it out, not having Michael save the day. But I think just having that character development instead of like starting off with Hugh and then jumping to Michael and there was just a lot of sort of trying to find its focus, and then it lands on Adira, and I kind of wish it just had stuck with her throughout the whole thing. But that's probably like a very old school way of doing television writing. But it works for me.
Go back to the old ways.
Yeah. Go back to basics, and it worked for a long time.
It worked in lots of Star Trek.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you got anything, Glenn?
I just feel like the show needs to take things more slowly. Like that's my overarching thing I would change.
Okay.
I don't know what
How would you fix this?
As far as this episode goes, I think
If you don't have any specific,
I don't have anything super specific. At least nothing better than what y'all already said. I just feel like it'd be better if stuff wasn't so shackled to the larger arc, and if it was just a cool story, because it doesn't feel like they're telling story for the sake of telling it. They're telling it to move the plot along, and the show just isn't very good at that. And I want to see them just enjoy an adventure for once, and that has happened a lot this season, which is why it's such a huge improvement.
Okay, yeah, I don't have a problem with them chasing the mystery, even as much as I hate mystery box plots of what caused the bird. But I do think I agree with all of y'all too. Like how I would have changed it is you set up Hugh is doing the log at the beginning. He talks to Adira. It should have been him going down to the planet with Adira. Michael's the star of the show. Okay, we have to have Michael. What are we going to do with Michael? Well, okay, she's the first officer. She goes down on away missions. Fine, she should go too. You could have 3 of them go down, which is, only 2 on an away mission is probably not the right number anyways. They usually send at least 3 in a red shirt to die, but, whatever. We're not killing any of our best friends who are the only people we talk about on the show. But so you send Hugh down as the emotional support that he was at the beginning. You don't have to do the whole... Michael, your emotional support, you did your year abroad, you have things in your dorm room now. It's like, no. And like, at first I was like, don't send Michael down at all. But okay, no, you had her there to be the heavy to fight back against the Trill that were going to, steal her. So you have Michael down as the heavy, as the Warfrol to stop the fight. And Hugh is there as the counselor, basically. So you have all the stuff that you said, Courtney, where you make it about Adira's journey instead of Michael doing it for her. She goes into the water, and then Michael wants to jump in and rush forward, but they fight her off. Have them actually have her lose a fight. This isn't Fast and Furious. You can have Michael Burnham lose a fight, and it doesn't ruin the character. And then you have Hugh whispering to her. Maybe he sneaks a finger in, and she gets a psychic connection with his hand in the water, and that's what it takes or something if you need to do that. But it's still, he's not telling her, no, let it happen. He says, follow your bliss or whatever, and she figures it out. That's what I would have done for this episode.
Okay.
Because breaking it up with like Hugh and then it's suddenly the Michael show, it's like, no, you had him as your medical log opener, have him be the guiding through voice for the entire episode.
Right, and it makes sense to send a doctor down with this whole situation of a human Trill.
Exactly.
And like, hey, we might have a situation where
it's a medical
they
thing.
need some physiological questions answered about humans.
It's a bunch of Trill who don't know how humans work, and it's a human who doesn't know how Trill work. You get a doctor to go to, that makes sense.
Let our doctors talk to your doctors.
Hell, you could even have the Detmer scene at the end where she's like, Hugh, you said you were there to talk. Maybe I should talk. Have that scene before he goes on the away mission. She goes to say, Hugh, I have been struggling. If you need to talk, we could talk. Hugh leaves, and that's why she has the explosion at the dinner table, because he's not there to calm her down.
Yeah, or just not have the dinner table.
Unless
or
you're
not
eating
have it,
people,
yeah.
then you can have it.
Yeah. I'm starting to worry about Saru just wants to have all his friends with him. And especially knowing what he does later in the season, you need to man up, make your own decisions, and not just have your best friends around you all the time. You got to put people around you that are the highest position and that are officers in charge, not just your besties.
Like be a fucking captain?
Yeah, except he just Googles how to be a good captain, which I actually love. Computer, how do I be a good captain? Which, he did that in season 1. I'm there for it, but
since
at least
his ganglia dropped, he
like,
should be a little more, assertive. And
yeah. At least call it out as something humorous or a weakness. And yes, so that's how I would fix it. Oh shit, we've got a long time. Oh man, did we leave anything out?
I mean, just status report, but that's okay. I have nothing new to say on that.
Wait, you haven't made any progress on your status report?
Well, you're not gonna blow the whistle, like.
Are you saying you didn't watch any Star Trek since we've been away for a while?
It's been a long time.
I've watched a few episodes of Voyager, but nothing major. I'm still enjoying it. But look. I'm not going to beat you up about not watching Star Trek. Now tell me what episodes of the Rules of Acquisition you listen to. No, I'm not going to beat you up over that either. Oh, good. I got a PS5, and it's taking up all my attention.
Status report. Glenn's a piece of shit. No, I love you, Glenn. I'm sorry.
I love you too, Wade.
You're not.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Well, end it. Blow the whistle again.
All right.
Oh man. Not even doing the work.
Yeah, no. I can't whistle. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I can't whistle either. No. All right. Well, I guess that's a good episode. I'm sorry. I feel like I barely yelled at you and was mean to you at all this episode, Glenn.
Oh, I'll find a way to cope.
You're too quiet, Glenn. You should have talked more. You
you should have spoken up so we could yell at you some more.
Can't imagine why he doesn't want to speak up.
That's all anybody's going to remember if they listen to this one. This is the one where Glenn was sad and nobody
was beaten down.
And those other assholes wouldn't shut up about how they hate Michael Burnham, and Glenn was sad. That's this episode of
Sean's life work has been completed before he left. I've been bullied into submission.
And by left, he's not dead, everybody. He's still with us in this mortal coil.
Right, he's on hiatus.
He also got a PS5 and has better shit to do.
He did, actually. That's exactly what happened.
Yeah, with my help.
Yeah, he got 2, actually. He got one for his brother and one for him.
Oh, we can't even get one.
I know. I was like, damn, I was trying to get my 12-year-old one. Yeah, for my 12-year-old.
Yeah. To keep him from any of those teen romances we're so against. Here, don't think about other people. Just play your PS5.
Yeah. You get him a PS5 so he can play Cyberpunk.
Yeah, we don't want him doing any of that weird sex stuff. Here, play this totally appropriate game.
All right. Well, I guess this is a good place to end it. Anybody have? No plugs.
No plugs.
Sean's podcast still isn't out. We'll let you...
That also got delayed because of his COVID.
Yeah, his imaginary podcast still made up. All right. Well, self-destruct sequence activate. Beta Alpha 1.
Oh.